Today we will discuss the enzyme called CoQ10 enzyme. This is a crucial enzyme for our respiratory system, or for us to be able to use oxygen and the fuels that we eat, for example, carbohydrates or lipids or proteins. And it is a critical part of the chain which takes the fuels and oxygen that we breathe and then finally makes energy from it. So thank you very much for joining today. This is a very important topic, and let us start our discussion. Good morning, everyone, or good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are from. And let's start our discussion. We're talking about CoQ10. I'm going to share my screen, and let's do that. Yes, here we are. So let's start from here. Very exciting topic today, and very interesting as well. So good evening, guys. Hello from Michigan. Hello back to you as well. Hello from Brisbane, Australia. Hello back to you. Hello to everyone. And let's talk about this. This is a very, very interesting topic, and that is the CoQ10 enzyme. And to discuss the CoQ10, I wanted to make sure that we understand the utility of it, as we always do. We look at the mechanism of everything so that we can have a deeper understanding, and we are protected from the misinformation or propaganda or marketing messages, as we know deep inside where the things are happening and what is really going on. So let's start. The very first thing that we need to understand the CoQ10 is the mitochondria. Mitochondria is present in almost all of our cells. Many cells do not have it. And the structure of the mitochondria is here. So I have made it look like a cake here, which is, I think it's going to make it easy for us to understand how a mitochondria is. So if I just quickly make a cell, let's say this is our cell, and this is a nucleus. Around the nucleus, there is a big accumulation or assembly of mitochondria, and mitochondria's job is to produce energy. They are the energy house of our cells, and then they provide that energy to us. Interestingly, mitochondria we think that these are actually pathogens that had learned to live with us, and then they help us make energy, and in turn, our cells give them protection and they live with us. They have their own DNA and RNA. So the mitochondria, if you look at the structure of a mitochondria has multiple membranes. We'll talk about it. But important thing is that inside the mitochondria, it has its own DNA and its own RNAs. So it does have its own function. And interestingly, today's discussion that we will do, you will see that the genes that give rise to the enzymes that we will talk about today, CoQ10, there are about 120 genes that participate in making parts of the CoQ10 or the synthesis of the CoQ10. And out of those 120 genes, 13 genes are from the mitochondria's own DNA, and the remaining genes are in our DNA. So this is our nucleus here. This is our nucleus, this guy, and this has our DNA, and our DNA contributes to formation of proteins, which are also part of the CoQ10 formation. So CoQ10 is made with 120 genes, proteins from 120 genes, or products from 120 genes, or operations from 120 genes. And out of those 120, 13 are mitochondrial genes, and the remaining are our genes. So that is a very interesting thing, that both of the systems, our cells and mitochondria, foreigner pathogens, they work together to form the components of the mitochondrial function. So with this, let's go back here. Let's look at how a mitochondria looks like. So this is important for us to note today. Mitochondria has an outer membrane. This outer membrane is the the blue membrane here. So there's a question, Doc, when is it live discussion on doxy? So I have already talked about no, I haven't talked about doxy. So we'll put that up as a topic. If everybody wants it, we'll do it tomorrow or day after. So back here, this blue membrane is the outer membrane of the mitochondria. This outer membrane has holes in it. So if you see here, these are the holes in the outer membrane through which ions and small molecules can freely go in and out. So you can think of the outer membrane as a more permeable membrane where small molecules and ions can move in and out easily. Then inside the mitochondria, there is one more membrane that is shown here in this orange color. This membrane here, this orange membrane here, this is the inner membrane of the mitochondria. It is very much folded. These folds are called cristae, and these folds increase the surface area of the mitochondria. So there is somebody who just wrote a melon, todas gracias. So I will have to block you. Refrain from putting such comments out there where you are just putting your WhatsApp numbers and other things. So anyways, back here. So the inner membrane, this orange membrane is the inner membrane. It is not permeable. It does not allow things to be moved in or out easily. It has special carriers that take things inside or outside. And then within the inner membrane, there is a gel-like substance, this green mound that I've made here. That is a gel-like substance that is present on the inner part of the mitochondria. And this part contains about 50% of this is proteins. So here, this gel, 50% of the gel is made up of proteins. And the remaining 50% are other components. So this is the basic structure of the mitochondria. What is the takeaway from here? Number one, that the most important part is that the inner membrane is folded. It has a large surface area because of the folds. Number two, the inner membrane does not allow substances, small, even ions, it does not allow them to move freely. Good? So this is the structure of the mitochondria. Now let's see, this is a little busy diagram. We'll go to that, but look at this part of the diagram first. So when we say what are the things that can easily move through the holes in the outer membrane, for example, ATP. So this is adenine or adenosine, and then these are triphosphates. So this is the ATP. ATP is the primary energy that, or the form of the energy that we use. So we have to make ATP. What happens is all the food that we eat, the fuels that we eat, for example, carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and the oxygen that we breathe. What happens is we take the oxygen that we breathe and we take the fuels that we eat and we take their final products and combine them into water to form water. And in that process here, we make energy. So of course, food is important for us to have energy and oxygen is important for us to have energy. So with this, keep this in mind. Going back here, ATP can freely move in and out. ADP, so this is diphosphate. There are two phosphates in here. This is ADP. ADP can move freely in and out of the outer membrane. Then smaller ions like hydrogen, potassium, sodium, they can also move in and out of the outer membrane easily. Now, between the outer membrane, which is this, and the inner membrane, which is this, there is a space which is the intermembrane space. Good? This space is also important, and we'll see that in a second. Now, if you look at these orange channels that I have made here, these are the specialized channels that allow various things to move in and out of the inner membrane. So this is the space inside. So imagine this is a ball, the inner membrane. It's a folded ball, and inside the ball there is a space that is shown here in green. And then outside the ball is this space, this space. Now, anything that needs to go in the ball or come out of that space, that needs to use channels. So these orange things here, these things are channels. This is a channel, this is a channel. These are channels that are necessary. Thank you very much. So I sit here and make these drawings. When I used to study these things, it used to become so difficult to understand how do these things work. I remember I used to become so confused about the mitochondrial structure. So I wanted to make sure that I make it look like a bowl inside another bowl, and then there is a space inside with the jelly in it. And hopefully that clarifies it. So now let's come here. This is an important part of the diagram. Easy, it seems busy, but it is easy. So let's start from here. These rounded structures here, these guys here, these guys together are called electron transport chain. What is their function? What they do is, starting from here, they take those substances that are produced as a result of the fuels that we eat. So for example, glucose, I'll keep saying this, these are the three fuels: carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins. When we eat those fuels and then our body oxidizes them or breaks them down, in that process, our body produces NADH and FADH, etc. So things that this chain can use. So we end up with, you can say we end up with electrons taken from the food we eat. And now we're going to make these electrons move down this chain. And in this last part, we are going to connect those electrons that we have taken from the food with the oxygen and hydrogen to make water. So in that process of making water, we will generate energy. And that is the concept that we are going to discuss now. And in that process, more important highlight is on CoQ10. CoQ10, if you can locate this guy, it is sitting here in this chain. So keep an eye. Hi, Dr. Vasaras, welcome. So keep an eye on the CoQ10. Look, it has a cute little blue tail as well here. And that is also an interesting thing. Okay, so how does the mechanism happen? How do we make energy? And what is the role of CoQ10 in that? So here is what happens. The fuels give us hydrogens or protons. The very first enzyme here, it is called a dehydrogenase enzyme. Not necessary to keep the name in mind, but just remember that there is an enzyme that has NAD attached to it, or it connects with NAD. Then what it does is it takes two electrons and a proton and makes NADH. So that is a start. That is the start of the electron chain. This is where the business of producing energy starts. How have you helped by doing this? You have eaten food and you have taken your breaths to bring oxygen. The material from food and oxygen is here, and these are the last construction workers who are going to make energy from it. So first step, we take NAD. This is the enzyme that takes NAD and converts it into NADH. Now, also keep an eye on one more thing. When these functions happen, when these enzymes do their function, in that process, they would release hydrogen ions on the outside of the inner membrane. So keep this in mind, because this is the main driver of energy production. So these guys, all these little rounded blobs here, these little guys, all of them, their basic function is to take electrons and move them down the chain. But while they're doing it, they're bringing hydrogen outside of the membrane. So what would happen is that this hydrogen ion that is coming out of the membrane is going to become so angry, saying that, why am I outside? I want to go in. And that power, that concentration gradient that it would produce will help us produce or run a motor to make energy. So first step done, NAD is converted to NADH. Then There is another enzyme sitting next to it that takes that NADH, or it takes these two electrons from NADH, and it forms FMNH2, FMNH2. So here it has FMN as a coenzyme attached to this enzyme, and it would convert FMN to FMNH2. How do you see it in a simple words? The basic thing that happened was electrons moved from there to here. And this is what you would see. These guys are going to move the electrons down, but as part of moving the electron down, that is not the primary function we want to do. We want them that every time they move the electrons down, and as every time there is some energy used or become available, we bring hydrogen out. This is like there are people who are gone into a house and they are pulling the people that live in the house, they are pulling them out of the house. So the people who would come out would become all angry that why did you get us out of the house? We want to go back in. And when they would go back in with force, they would exert energy that we will then collect and make energy for ourselves. So these guys are pushing hydrogen ions out. So this is the second step. So one step done, NADH made into NADH2. Second step done, FMN becomes FMNH2. This is happening because the electrons are moving. Then comes our hero of the talk today. This is the only enzyme here which is not a protein. All other enzymes here, NADH or dehydrogenase, FMN, then B, C, A, A3, these are all proteins, except the CoQ10 or CoQ. This enzyme is not a protein. Instead, it is a quinone derivative. It is made from quinone. It is called ubiquinone. I hope I write the spellings correctly. It is called ubiquinone because it is ubiquitous in our body or in biological material. Ubiquitous means present everywhere. So this is an enzyme that is present everywhere and our body can make it for our needs. However, you would see today that in some oxidative stresses, for example, with COVID-19 or for example, with other conditions, this enzyme becomes reduced in quantity. And think about it. Keep in mind, what is the function of the enzyme? What is it doing here? It is taking electrons from one side and giving electrons to the other side. That means it can take part in oxidation reduction processes. That means it can act as an antioxidant. That is the function that is important for us to know today. So not only it is important for energy production, but it is present separately in the cytosol as well, or in our body as well, even in our plasma. And over there, it can act as an antioxidant. That is the most important thing to take away. So if from today's discussion, you take two things away, that is CoQ10 takes part in energy production, and number two, CoQ10 is an antioxidant. What does that mean then? That would mean that if we are low on energy, we can supply ourselves with CoQ10 and hopefully that would increase our energy level. They have actually seen in studies that the children who are given CoQ10, they become hyper energized, and adults who take CoQ10 cannot sleep well because of the higher excited energy state. They develop insomnia or their brain becomes more active. So this is a very, very important thing. So two things today. So Arthur says the chap needs to publish a book with his illustrations. They're brilliant. Thank you very much. So back here, CoQ10 would take the enzyme from FMNH2 and then pass them on to cytochrome B. So these guys are all called cytochromes. They have iron in them. That iron is used by them to accept the electrons or to donate the electrons. They are all oxidative reductive enzymes. They can all accept electron and they can all donate electrons. That is why it is an electron chain. And what are they doing? They are bringing electrons from a high donation element to an element that would accept the electron, which is oxygen. So back here, CoQ would give the electron to B, cytochrome B, that would give it to C, or they sometimes act together. And then finally, those electrons would end up with A and A3. Now, A and A3, they are the most pretty cytochromes. If I could hug some cytochromes, these are the ones. What do? They will take hydrogen that is available. They will take the electrons that are sent to them. So here, they would take the hydrogen that is available. They would take the electron that came down the electron transport chain. They would take oxygen present that we have breathed in, that we breathe and oxygen is available. They would take all this raw material and convert that into water. This is why over here, this bluish thing here is water. They are the only enzymes in this transport chain that would finally use oxygen and transport the electrons to the oxygen, then attach the protons to it and make water. So all good. I love it. And we have done this discussion in the past in the hypercoagulability because of COVID-19, that if this chain becomes disrupted, then those electrons that are being produced here and here and here and here, they're moving, these can escape this chain. And that is how reactive oxygen species are formed. And that is how damage to the cell occurs. And it is not necessary that that only happens with COVID-19. It happens, the reactive oxygen species escape from this chain all the time. These are electrons that would just escape, or the half-baked oxygen, or oxygen with unstable electrons with it. And those would then cause dangerous activities, which we talked about in the past, that they would break DNA, they would break lipids, they would break cell membranes and cause damage. So finally, when we reach these two guys, A and A3, that is when this whole thing comes to an end and water is formed. So far so good, correct? What have we accomplished in this process? What we have accomplished in this process is that we have brought in a lot of hydrogen ions. While the electrons were moving down the chain, we used some of that energy to finally make ATP. We also used some of that energy to make heat for ourselves. We also used some of that energy to drive calcium channels. And in that whole process, hydrogen ions are produced. These hydrogen ions, you can actually imagine now that outside of the mitochondria, now there is a ton of hydrogen ions that are sitting outside and that are all angry, and they're saying, why the heck are we outside? Who threw us out of our home? We want to go in the matrix, or in this space, the inner mitochondrial space, this space. They want to go back in. And because there are less hydrogen ions inside, there is a concentration gradient. And you all know that in biochemistry, when there is higher concentration of something, that thing will try to go towards a lower concentration. So these guys are all now sitting here. See, they're all angry. One of them is even trying to climb up as well to go in. So they use another enzyme here, which is called ATP synthase. That is this blue guy. This blue guy allows the hydrogen ions to move from outside towards inside, but as the hydrogen ions are moving inside against with the concentration gradient, the force that they apply to move inward, that force is used to drive a motor in this protein, ATP synthase. That motor, it's a beautiful mechanism. I love it. So as that motor rotates, what it does is it takes ADP that is already present inside the mitochondrial matrix. It takes plus it takes one more phosphate, and as the motor moves, it converts that into ATP. So this is how energy in our body is built. It is beautiful. This ATP is the one that we in turn use. So I hope that this is clear that we make energy, and for making the energy, we need the electron transport chain. And the function of the electron transport chain is to move the electrons down the chain and finally to make it water, and an inert thing, a good thing for us. In that process, the hydrogens are thrown out when or produced outside. They want to go in. When they go in that process of movement, they help move a motor in our system, which is called ATP synthase. That motor, when that moves, it converts ADP into ATP, which we need. ATP is our energy. It is our money inside our cells. So far, so good. Now, we also know about the CoQ10. CoQ10, absolutely, Siddhartha is saying that beautiful chain. Absolutely, this is a beautiful chain, and it is happening in all of our cells, wherever mitochondria are present. And there are drugs, or like, for example, carbon monoxide, there are drugs that disrupt this final ATP synthase system, and these are poisons. They would end up causing ATP not to be formed, and we have a problem. Okay, so this much is good. Now, keep in mind, this CoQ10 is what we are going to talk about. So let's go down here. Let's see what CoQ10 does. And I'm going to show you a few studies as well. So first of all, and I would put the links out in the description. First of all, here is a study. This is 28 May. So rather recent study. CoQ10 is super vitamin. Review on applications and biosynthesis. So in here, they have discussed that how it is formed outside, the CoQ10 that we buy, how it is made there. And over here, what is interesting, CoQ10 is synthesized by conjugation of benzoquinone with isoprenoid. So remember, I had made this tail, blue tail. This is isoprenoid part, and then the remaining part is benzoquinone. These two components are conjugated. They are bound together to make CoQ10. Again, CoQ10 is present inside the mitochondria, and it is present inside the cells as well, plus in the plasma as well. It acts as two things. What are the two things? Number one, it helps generate energy. It takes part in the formation of energy, plus it is a strong antioxidant. So all oxidative stress situations, COVID-19 is one such situation, it helps. So this is one study that I would like you to see. Then here, this is another study. It is a little older, 2014, and they have talked about CoQ10 therapies. And I will go over some of those important therapies that are important for us. But what they have said is that they have seen CoQ10 deficiency in many stressful situations for the body. So situations where oxidative stress is produced, for example, infections, situations where there is damage occurring into the body and more energy is needed to fight the damage, for example, let's say COVID-19 damage or flu or pneumonia or other infections or other situations where body is fighting something and body needs more energy. Of course, it would need the energy production system to operate at a higher level, and in that case, there may be enzymes needed. So what they observed was in the studies that in stressful situations, CoQ10 levels drop. That means CoQ10 are somehow used up. Maybe they are in those cells that are functioning and are dying, and the CoQ10 are being wasted as part of the cell destruction. And we need new CoQ10 to make new cells and to make new CoQ10 electron transport chains in there. So first, deficiency state can be observed in people who are under oxidative stresses. Secondly, they have talked about it. Look, here is an important thing. Reported plasma, let's see if I can make it bigger. Reported plasma CoQ10 range from 0.4 to 1.91 micromole per liter. So that is a normal range, or 0.34 to 1.65 microgram per milliliter. Then mechanism of action. Look at this. This is the most important part that I would like us to remember after the CoQ10. So somebody is saying that, good evening, Drbeen. I'm Rachel. Later I will send you a comment because at the moment I'm taking your notes. Absolutely good. Okay, back here. So here is the most important part for the CoQ10. Check this out. Remember that reactive oxygen species are made whenever our cells are functioning. We just saw where these are made. They are made in the electron transport chain. These monsters, these reactive oxygen species, in turn cause damage to our DNA because they're very reactive. They have high energy electrons sitting with them, and that is like fire. And they can touch a protein and coagulate it or damage it. They can touch a lipid and damage it, and they can touch DNA and damage this. So the more important destruction that we are more concerned with at this time is the lipid peroxidation. And I've done a lecture before about the various kind of oxidative stresses in hypercoagulability videos. If anybody wants, you can see that for a more in-depth discussion. Lipid peroxidation is very important. When reactive oxygen species are produced and they cause lipids to become reduced and become reactive oxygen, not oxygen species, but reactive lipid species, these lipids would in turn cause a lot of damage to other lipids. Similarly, when the reactive oxygen species this is our cell membrane. In the cell membrane, we have lipids as well. Remember, cell membranes are made up of phospholipids. So there is a phosphate in them, and then there is lipids. These chains are called lipids, and then there are two phospholipids, and they are sitting together. This is how our cell membrane is made. So there are lipids there. This reactive oxygen species, they fuse these lipids together. They weld them together, which causes severe damage to the cell membrane, which in turn opens up the cell membrane and creates holes in it, which causes the cell to become damaged and even die. So that is what is important, because CoQ10 suppresses the lipid peroxidation by reactive oxygen species. That is its speciality. So first thing that it does is it blocks the lipid peroxidation both in the lipid storage area plus in the cell membrane. So that is a great thing. It helps us keep our cells intact while we are under stresses by infections or other stressful situations. Then look at this one. In case of COPD, and I have some studies here to show you this, in patients of COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or asthma, they have observed that their CoQ10 levels are low. And improving the CoQ10 levels by supplements makes these people less dependent upon steroids, and their COPD level intensity reduces. So they improve. So this is another. And how do they improve? The COPD's basic problem is oxidative stress. The reactive oxygen species cause damage to the lungs in COPD patients. So CoQ10, when given in supplements, causes the reactive oxygen species to become neutralized. And that reduces asthma and COPD. So once again, it is interesting for us to know here, because the COVID-19 disease or SARS-CoV-2 attacks the lungs as well. And because it attacks the lung, there is oxidative stress. So CoQ10's presence will help. It is a strong antioxidant. One more thing that is important, and again, there are tons of things that CoQ10 does. I have taken those that are more relevant for infections, especially SARS-CoV-2-like infections. So remember, we have discussed this in the past, that there is a hypercoagulability state. So CoQ10 reduces the atherosclerosis as well, or makes the progress of atherosclerosis less. And how does it do that? That is also done by blocking the lipid peroxidation. So the lipids inside the cells and under the blood vessels cells, those lipids, when they get reactive oxygen species, that cause damage. I've done this discussion many times in our previous discussions. The result is there is damage to the blood vessel wall, which finally becomes atherosclerotic, and then further issues with hypertension and cardiac failure start. Here, CoQ10 actually helps reduce the atherosclerotic development or reduces the reactive oxygen species damage to the blood vessels. Can I ask you this, that would it help in COVID-19 or not? Yes, it would help in any situation which causes blood vessel damage. And to generalize this statement, any antioxidant to use it. Okay, so continuing on, CoQ10 and its, so we just talked about its normal plasma levels, that is here. I showed you this study there. Vitamin B6 is necessary for CoQ10 production. There are many biosynthetic things that are needed, but vitamin B6 is necessary. So that means if somebody is taking CoQ10 supplements, it may be useful to also take vitamin B6 with it, because vitamin B6 takes part in the synthesis of CoQ10. Then, of course, benzoquinone and isoprenoid that we talked about before. You don't need to take benzoquinone and isoprenoids because CoQ10 itself has them already. Now, the daily dose, 90 milligram to 200 milligram up to 500 milligram. Side effects. Side effects are very simple. Look, what does CoQ10 do? If I take CoQ10 today, it will increase my energy production. That will make me hyper excited. You know, like we say that the children are bouncing off the walls. So you'll start bouncing off the walls. You'll become excited. That's one side effect if it is taken in more quantity. Second side effect is that it can cause nausea and stomach upset. Another important side effect, which I forgot to write here, is that it can interfere with blood thinners function. So somebody who's taking clopidogrel or warfarin, they should not take CoQ10 supplements without talking with their doctor, because the blood thinning capability of those drugs can be interfered by CoQ10. So that is an important one. Blood thinning medicines, guys, this is when I write fast, this is how I write. Medicine interference. So this is an important one. Then, where do we find CoQ10? So what foods have CoQ10 in them? So number one, soybean and canola oils have CoQ10 in them. Then the organ meat, that is liver, heart, kidney, they have CoQ10. Look, in our body, any organ that is functioning at a higher, that is performing at a higher level, has a lot of mitochondria because it needs a lot of energy. That means it has lots of CoQ10s. So, of course, then heart, liver, kidney, these cells would have a lots of CoQ10 in them. So these are rich sources of CoQ10. Then muscle, that may be beef or pork. Then chicken, that also has CoQ10. Then in vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, and spinach have CoQ10. Fatty fish has CoQ10. So salmon, for example, I love salmon. So fatty fish have CoQ10. Then legumes, for example, soybean, lentils, peanuts, they have CoQ10. Orange has CoQ10, which is very interesting because we need to eat oranges and apples every day nowadays, because oranges have vitamin C and apples have quercetin in them. So oranges also have CoQ10 in them. Strawberries also have CoQ10 in them. Remember, strawberries also have quercetin in them. All fruits and vegetables with red skin have quercetin in them, which is a zinc ionophore. We've talked about that in the past. Now, please remember that strawberries also have CoQ10 in them. Sesame seeds have it, pistachios have it. Of course, this is the foods. You can finally decide to take supplements as well, but this is the general discussion. Let's now look at some of the studies here. So the clinical indications of CoQ10. Patients with all forms of CoQ10 deficiencies have shown clinical improvement with oral CoQ10 supplementation. And they're saying that the cerebral symptoms may not benefit that much if there is a permanent brain damage already occurred. Remember, CoQ10 is also given to patients with the mitochondrial diseases, because if there is a patient with the mitochondrial disease, they may not have a good electron transport chain, or they may not be making good CoQ10, so supplementation is important for them. Similarly here, mitochondrial disorders, I just discussed this. Cardiovascular disease. Look, oxidative stress. In all of these diseases, the baseline that you would see is the stress to the tissue causing reactive oxygen species formed, or the reactive oxygen species formed causing stress to the tissue and damage to it, and CoQ10 can come and help. This is similar to N-acetylcysteine or glutathione. So if somebody is nowadays taking care of them, vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, quercetin, N-acetylcysteine, or glutathione, I would prefer N-acetylcysteine because N-acetylcysteine does its own antioxidant function as well with CoQ10. These are the kind of supplements that are interesting to keep our immune system balanced and humming. CoQ10 has an additional benefit of giving us enough energy to allow our fighter cells to combat infections easily. So here, look at this. Numerous studies have investigated the benefit of CoQ10 supplementation for improving cardiovascular function via enhanced energy production. At the base of every function, you'll see increased energy production and antioxidant function of the CoQ10. Then look at this atherosclerosis. Atherosclerosis is a long-term phenomena. However, the basic mechanism of the atherosclerosis is blood vessel damage, and CoQ10 helps prevent that or reduce that. I don't think it can prevent it, it reduces it. So in case of COVID-19, the blood vessel damage can be reduced by CoQ10's presence. So if you see here, CoQ10 in its reduced form, ubiquinol, inhibits proteins and DNA oxidation, but it is the effect on lipid peroxidation that has been most deeply studied. And dietary supplementation with CoQ10 results in increased resistance of low-density lipoproteins to be initiation of lipid peroxidation. At the end of the day, what they're saying is it helps reduce blood vessel wall damage, which is necessary to prevent. And so they keep going. There is a lot more. I'll put the links out and you can read them. But this is the basic discussion. I wanted to show you, let me balance this whole thing out as well. There has been a study here which was done on the patients with the bronchial asthma and COPD. In this study, they said that patients with COPD and asthma had lower levels of CoQ10 probably because of the oxidative stresses in their lungs. CoQ10 was used up, and supplying CoQ10 helped them. So this is a study. Then here is another study. So there is a very common discussion about CoQ10 that people who are on statins, they develop muscle pains, and CoQ10 helps with that. So here is a study that showed that there is no such effect. So again, if it helps somebody, they should take it, but the study said it has no effect. Then I also wanted to show you this. This is National Center of Complementary and Integrative Health, NIH. They say CoQ10 is useless. So that is, I'm summarizing their message. Here they're saying, bottom line, CoQ10 has not been shown to be of value in treating cancer. Only a few studies have looked into the CoQ10 might help prevent heart disease, and their results are inconclusive. Let me just make it a little bigger. So, and I'll put those links out as well. All the results of individual studies have varied all over. Scientific evidence does not support the idea that CoQ10 can reduce muscle pain by cholesterols. I showed you that study as well, that it probably doesn't do it. Small amount of evidence currently available suggesting CoQ10 probably doesn't have meaningful effect on blood pressure. So all of those things that people say it does, at least I wanted to show you the flip side as well, that NIH says it does nothing. They do agree that there is a possibility that heart surgery patients can benefit from CoQ10 because their heart is under stress and has oxidative stresses after the surgery, and CoQ10 can help with that. So this is NIH. Then I want to continue on to Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai, it is useful in possibly pressure. And here, look at this. They say that CoQ10 has the potential to lower systolic blood pressure by up to 17 millimeters systolic by 17 millimeter and diastolic by 10. That in some cases might be sufficient to just reduce the blood pressure, hypertension back towards normal. So do not try to treat high blood pressure by yourself, see your provider. So just, I wanted to make sure that you don't self-medicate yourself. High cholesterol, they say that it is seen that CoQ10 can help with that. Diabetes, it is observed that CoQ10 can help reduce the intensity of diabetes, and that is what, and they say that there are studies that show there is benefit, and then there are studies that show there is no benefit. Heart damage by chemotherapy, heart surgery, it can reduce damage caused by free radicals. Then gum, if people have the periodontal diseases, it helps there as well. So at least Mount Sinai has said that this is possible, that it can help. And in here, I want to show you one more. This is the last one. No, not this one. There is another that has dosages in it. Let's see. No. So there was, I had a site up. I'm sorry, I can't find it. They had the dosage. So I can't find it. I'll put the link out. I'll find it. They had dosage for various situations and what dose to be given. Let me see if I can actually quickly find it. Yeah, so here. This is Kaiser Permanente. So again, Kaiser Permanente is a very important and big medical organization in the US. They run their own hospitals. They have a unique insurance system as well. I love Kaiser Permanente. And here, this is their link by Kaiser Permanente, where they have given the amount of CoQ10 needed in various situations. For example, angina, 150 milligram daily. Hypertension, 100 milligram twice per day. Athletic performance, cardiomyopathy, congestive heart failure, fibromyalgia, gingivitis, and so on. If you see, they have offered various doses as well. So this is the discussion today. Hopefully it was short and sweet and it was valuable. Well, it's not short and sweet. It is 1 hour. So Dr. Bill Gates says, oh no, please, let's keep going. Bethel says, seriously, Dr. Drbeen, Kaiser? Many of my friends work at Kaiser, so I would take Kaiser as well. What is better form of quinone or quinol? So that's a good question. There are two forms of the CoQ10 that are available, quinone or quinol. So the ol is better because it is better lipid soluble. And secondly, if you take CoQ10, take it with the food which has oils or some fatty things, because that help make it absorbed. So it's been very valuable. You're very welcome. Please do me a favor. I say this to everyone. Please like, subscribe, and share. That would be your favor back to me. So that is done. Can I assume the studies are referring to ubiquinone unless specific ubiquinol? So JG, some of these studies have said that they had external supplements with ubiquinol. Most of the time when they are doing the studies, they use ubiquinol as the supplement. Kent says, this is what I deal with every day at work. Good, not good, crazy. Yeah, so we have it everywhere as well. I was recommended CoQ10 for gum health years ago, and it's been good for me, 100 milligram a day. It works for that, yes, agreed. Should we eat CQ10 foods versus take supplements? If our body somehow is not able to make enough CoQ10, and if you prefer eating supplements, then foods, then that is fine. Just do the measurement that in one orange, what is the quantity of CoQ10 available. Supplements have measured quantities. In the food, you will have to do that measurement by yourself. But yeah, eat food if you like that, or these foods that have CoQ10. If CoQ10 will increase energy inside the cells, can this virus make use of this and increase application or what? No. So Abdul, the increased energy is very useful for our, number one, general cells to stay healthy, and number two, for our immune cells to have higher energy levels to be able to fight the virus. Dr. China, why did patients give remdesivir change their skin to very dark? Send me the link. I would like to read that up before I talk about it. Alexander says, bias phonies. Okay, so I took glutathione during my COPD infection and juice placed multiquercetin vitamin A, high fever. Very good, Kathleen. Congratulations that you are safe, and good that you did well. Capers are very high in quercetin, but they are very good. So guys, thank you very much for your time today. Welcome back after the Eid. And I hope that you like the CoQ10. It's a very cute thing. It's a very cute enzyme. It helps us. So if you like it, please take it. And what do you want to talk about tomorrow? Too much math while eating juice plus. Yeah, if you decide the food, then you'll have to do a lot of math. Juice plus is good as well. Awesome lecture. I love the info. I love microbiology. Very good. Great info, doc. 10 stands for. I'll answer that in the comment. Censoring doctors during a pandemic should be a crime. I hope that they don't censor these things. There is nothing harmful in here. It's actually going to be helpful for the people who hear, and they can take care of themselves and they can take supplements and keep themselves strong. What's so bad about it? So tomorrow's topic, Dr. Bill Gates. So what would you like to talk about? Doxycycline? Or there are some remdesivir studies that came out and said it didn't work very well. There are some hydroxychloroquine studies as well that came out. I think now there are all kinds of studies that are coming out. So we can talk about studies and latest on the latest state of affairs, or we can talk about doxycycline. What would you like? So anything on melatonin and famotidine, I can do that. I was also thinking about other antivirals that have been used in other countries and with some success. So James says, wonderful presentation. You have fantastic illustrations that make learning fun. Huge congrats. One takeaway for me besides super electron chain presentation was CoQ10 and possibly ascorbic acid impact heart disease. Thanks. Absolutely correct. Ascorbic acid, vitamin D, CoQ10, NAC, glutathione. These are important things to have in our food or to have through the supplements. I don't sell any supplements. I do not have any stocks that I own. I actually did not even buy stocks in these companies like remdesivir and others. I am very, very neutral in this whole thing. I have no financial interest, or I have no political interest, or I do not have a boss that I need to go and make happy by talking about something specific. I am a CEO of my company, and that's what I do. So I am pretty neutral. If there is any mistake I've made, that may be because I made a mistake and not because I am leaning towards one side or the other. Can I send you some information on how to send this? Absolutely. So you can send it to Mobeen at drbeen.com, MOBEEN at DRBEEN.com. 30-second video from you to share with others what you take of COVID. No discussion. Absolutely. Absolutely. So again, this is not a prescription for anyone. The prescription that I have been giving to my patients, NAC, vitamin C, vitamin D. I give vitamin D in higher doses, not in the regular doses. But when I teach vitamin D, I use the textbook doses because that is where the safety levels are. And I don't want to talk beyond that, but I give vitamin D in higher dose. Then I give them in outpatient hydroxychloroquine, zinc, azithromycin if needed, and with that quercetin, or I ask them to eat apples and berries. And that I ask them to have bronchodilators available if they become short of breath. At least they take bronchodilators while they are contacting the emergency department. And that is, I ask them not to take steroid inhalers because that can reduce the hydration, and for that electrolyte water is what I prescribe to take, because COVID causes a lots of dehydration and weakness and myalgias. With that supportive therapy for fever, for example, paracetamol or whatever other antitussives, antipyretics can be given. So this is what I usually do. Thank God, till to date, all of the patients that have contacted me, they are fine and they have recovered. But again, the situation in the emergency and beyond is different. This is just in the outpatient is what I do for my patients. This is not a prescription for, I'm not your doctor, so please don't put me and yourself in trouble by self-medicating. So hopefully, Embal, that answers your question. Dr. Bill Gates says, disclaimer, of course, disclaimer has to be out there. Have you discussed selenium yet? No. So let us break for today. Please put your comments here with what would you like to discuss tomorrow. And yes, tinnitus as well, CoQ10 helps with that too. So let's break for today. Thank you very much for joining. I'm sorry that these become 1 hour long discussions, but I like that all the concepts are clear to us so we can think for ourselves that how do these things help, instead of some article that says it helps in following things. Now that you know what is the mechanism, it is antioxidant and it is energy, it is part of energy production, you can now think for yourself for how to use it. Lancet has been doing some interesting things as well, Dr. Alexander, you are correct. Cool. So I'm going to take off now. Thank you very much. And please put your comments out there for what would you like tomorrow. And please, please, please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you. Bye-bye.